Sleigh bells ringing, diamonds blinging, carols singing, favorite season. Sleigh bells ringing, diamonds blinging, carols singing, favorite season. They said, Saint Nick, what you got up in that bag, yeah? I got racks in my sack or in my bag, yeah. They said, Saint Nick, what you got up in that bag, yeah? I got racks in my sack or in my bag, yeah. Snowfall frozen, neck is frozen. Catch me rolling, I'm the chosen. Snow is falling, Elfie's calling. Check my list twice, most of y'all done. Sleigh bells ringing, diamonds blinging, carols singing, favorite season. Sleigh bells ringing, diamonds blinging, carols singing, favorite season. They say, Saint Nick, what you got up in that bag, yeah? I got racks in my sack or in my bag, yeah. They said, Saint Nick, what you got up in that bag, yeah? I got racks in my sack or in my bag, yeah. Dasher, Dancer, Prancer, and Vixen, Comet, Cupid, Donner, and Blitzen. No, I can't forget about the one with the red nose. When I fly high, my sleigh still stay 10 toes. Bring the beat, bring the trees, put the lights up. 'Tis the season. Need no Grinch types, no Ebenezer. Don't believe this, y'all need Jesus. Sleigh bells ringing, diamonds blinging, carols singing, favorite season. Sleigh bells ringing, diamonds blinging, carols singing, favorite season. They said, Saint Nick, what you got up in that bag, yeah? I got racks in my sack or in my bag, yeah. They said, Saint Nick, what you got up in that bag, yeah? I got racks in my sack or in my bag, yeah. They said, Saint Nick, what you got up in that bag, yeah? I got racks in my sack or in my bag, yeah. They said, Saint Nick, what you got up in that bag? I got racks in my sack or in my bag.
You got me down, make my world spin round. I love you, what to do now? Cause the problem is I love you. What to do, I come to think when next to me. I love you, what to do now? Do now. Only problem is I love you. What to do, you got me down, make my world spin round. I love you, what you do now? Do now. Cause the problem is I love you.
style for you. Ain't seen you at the top, it's been a while for you. Big you up and they look down on you. Take one loss, no one's around for you. I won't stop, no, 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 no. I won't stop, I won't stop. I won't stop, no, 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 no. I won't stop, won't stop. Yeah. I'm so handsome. All in Carmine's with my Vans, ooh, I'm so fancy. No romancing. Got my baby and she right, she make you vanish. No time to play, got book dates. Had a plan, only had to wait. Always knew I'd make a way. Send a bill, they send a pay. Keep it real, keep the record straight. Keep it real, no time to fake. All authentic in my own lane. I am me till I'm in the grave. Trendsetter, I got style for you. Ain't seen you at the top, it's been a while for you. Big you up and they look down on you. Take one loss, no one's around for you. I won't stop, no, 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 no. I won't stop, I won't stop. I won't stop, no, 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 no. I won't stop, won't stop. Ooh, never panic. Get a worry, send it up and then advantage. Yeah, I can't stand it. Out of order way you move and see you scrambling. On offense, no defense. Still strong, no weakness. Used to say I wouldn't beat this. Now they wish they could beat this. Tables set, now tables turn. God's plan, I don't say a word. Know the price, cause I know my worth. My time, get what I deserve. Trendsetter, I got style for you. Ain't seen you at the top, it's been a while for you. Big you up and they look down on you. Take one loss, no one's around for you. I won't stop, no, 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 no. I won't stop, I won't stop. I won't stop, no, 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 no. I won't stop, won't stop.
Finns det några snälla barn här?